Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Yes, welcome back, everybody. We're home. I'm about to start calling this place Zak is Home because ZakIsCinema is for all those people out there that when you get done watching a movie and then you turn to the person next to you and start discussing all the things that you loved and hated about it, but then you slowly realize that nobody was sitting next to you the entire time when you were watching it, so you're just kind of left there wondering who's going to hear my thoughts on this movie. Well, we're in the same spot here because I'm not talking to anybody either. Welcome to ZakIsCinema. You now have a person that'll listen to you talk about your thoughts and feelings on movies. So you're welcome. Never done a movie franchise ranking before, so that's what today's video is going to be. We just finished up all the Terminator reviews, so we're going to be doing a Terminator movie franchise ranking. So this ranking is going to be from my least favorite all the way up to my favorite movie in the Terminator movie franchise. So if you guys are interested in some of my more in-depth thoughts, since these are just going to be kind of brief overviews, I have videos. I'll put some end cards with my reviews for these. I have videos for every single movie in the Terminator franchise if you guys are interested. So yes, without further ado, let's get started with our Terminator franchise ranking. Coming in my last spot, my number 6 spot is Terminator Dark Fate. I really don't think that this is like the worst made or like the least quality made movie in this franchise. I just personally found this one to be the most frustrating by the time I got to it. It left such a bad taste in my mouth. It soured my experience while watching it that it just left me with the feeling that, hey, I don't think I'm really ever gonna watch this one like ever again. My biggest issue with this one is I like appreciate the ginormous balls that it had by killing John Connor off in those first couple minutes, and I was like, oh shit, this is kind of crazy right now, but it was all just a tease because they never let their balls drop and do something different, move our plot forward in any way. They start off by killing John, but then instantly get cold feet and do the same exact plot again, just with a new different version of our John Connor character that we've obviously seen before, but instead it's this time now with our Danny character. They like call themselves out in their own movie, right? Because Sarah Connor in this movie even calls Danny I think she refers to her as the new John. And when I was watching it, I'm like, yeah, like she is just the new John, so why'd you guys like just kill off John just to do the same exact thing, the same exact character arc with Danny that we did with John, and then rehash some of our plot points throughout the movie? So they set up your expectations differently, but they don't go through with anything new or different, and I think the lack of newness and originality bothered me so much in this movie because by the time I got to it, I just really found myself just sick and tired of this Terminator formula, the formula that all these movies have. By the time I got to this, when I saw that they did like a pretty much just a fake out of trying to do something different and then reverted back to the same plot points, it just left me feeling pretty frustrated. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of the John Connor character, as I've touched on in my reviews before, so I didn't find it so like disrespectful that they killed him off in the way that they did. I just thought that it ruined that by doing the same exact thing right after you killed him off. There's some interesting things in there, like what they do with Arnold's character, but it's really not that much different or new compared to the arc that they sent him on in T2. So even that, I didn't find myself too invested or interested in all that much, at least not for wanting to rewatch something like this. Yes, coming in at number 6, my least favorite of the Terminator franchise is Terminator Dark Fate. But coming in at number 5, we got Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. I put this one so low on my list just because after watching those first 2 amazing movies, you can automatically and instantly feel the third one's like hard drop in quality that it's bringing to our franchise. They kill off Sarah Connor off screen. Arnold feels like he was just held at gunpoint by the director to be in this movie. They undo the ending of Terminator 2 and open it back up just to introduce this lesser film. And I think you notice the drop in quality as soon as they start doing introducing some more of the humor stuff in this movie. It feels so out of place and it takes a lot of the intensity out. You get those cringy scenes with Arnold, the talk to the hand one, him going into the male strip club right in the beginning. He puts on some silly glasses and you're like, ha 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 ha. Oh, Arnold, that is so silly. Like, it just doesn't work. It doesn't translate right. And it's just such a shift in quality coming from our first two amazing movies. On top of that, we got John Connor. I forget the actor that portrays him. Not a very good actor. He's not a really good character. He's kind of whiny, and he doesn't really go on that good enough of an arc to make me feel like he is this leader that he's set up to be in the first two movies and that he's set up to be at the end of this movie. His arc doesn't translate to the ending that they want for this John Connor character. And just his writing and portrayal throughout, I found him just annoying. The love story just didn't work for me. They're constantly fighting throughout the movie. Then they just end up together at the end with no setup or no real reason for those characters to get together other than it's in the script. So that's how I felt watching it. I do enjoy like the ending and the dark tone that it leaves off on. I think it's a unique ending, especially for this franchise. Just the rest of the movie doesn't match that energy, tone, or vibe the ending goes for. If the movie had that same quality and uniqueness that the ending does, I think this would be much higher and I'd be more forgiving of it for reopening up our franchise. But instead, it feels like a cash grab with a couple interesting things set up at the end. But the whole entire movie, you basically get the same exact plot with no changes at all. My number 5 is Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. Coming in at number 4, I got Terminator Genesis. Now, I don't hate this one as most people do. I do really enjoy that crazy, over-the-top, fan fiction-y feel that this movie has going for it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the John Connor Terminator twist in this movie. I really enjoy that twist. I like how it changes things for our franchise, does something different in this movie, does something different with our John Connor character, and makes Skynet, or Genesis in this case, seem like a more imposing threat because they're changing up their plan. They're not just rehashing what we've seen before, not rehashing their same exact plan that they've had in previous movies. So I think that really works for me. It adds that over-the-top fan fiction-y feel that this movie has going for it. I think it's unique. I think it works well, and it's something that is in this movie that I might want to revisit and rewatch again, just because I do enjoy that plot point. However, the Kyle Reese character and Sarah Connor and Arnold three-way relationship in this movie really just doesn't work for me. I never really wanted Kyle and Sarah to get together, and I think that has a lot to do with Jai Courtney's performance. He comes off as creepy and just a bit of an asshole throughout the entire movie. So again, similar to Terminator 3, where you don't buy the love story, they're fighting the entire time, and then by the end of it, they just get together again because the script tells them to. There's no setup or no real interesting dynamic between them where you could see them actually ending up together. So that stuff just doesn't work for me. The Genesis plan of like having a big killer app is just so cringy. Feels like it was written by some out of the touch board members who wrote this. It just kind of comes off as not as intimidating as some of these other Terminator movies, kind of cringy and doesn't hold up very well. The ending also kind of does bother me in this movie. Like they never address the ramifications of how Kyle's interacting with his younger self, and just that scene alone is just so cringy. They make it seem like this big emotional moment, and you're like, dude, I don't care. I don't want to see Jai Courtney happy, dude. This dude seems weird. It just doesn't work for me. I didn't really enjoy it, and I hate it to the point where I got in this franchise and they never address those like ramifications of how our characters are interacting with stuff in the future or the past, and how it never really seems to interfere or negatively impact our protagonists, especially in this movie. Like I couldn't imagine the ramifications of talking to my younger self, and I feel like they address that in like every single time travel movie I've ever seen, and they don't even stop for a second to address that. I have a lot of negatives with this movie, but like overall, I do find it just like a fun movie to watch. I enjoy the angle that they're going for of just taking the plot of the first one. So we're rehashing it again, but it's almost like from a alternate reality or an alternate perspective. So I think it adds a little bit more to this franchise because there's a lot you could play around with time travel and sci-fi. And I think they do this in this movie. It's not to its like top-notch quality that it could have been or should have been, because I think it's a interesting idea to kind of just change everything from the first movie and see it from a new lens. Overall, I would say a lot of it worked for me. Wouldn't mind rewatching this one. Again, I see the negatives people complain about. I'm just not that harsh on it. Yes, coming in at number 4, we got Terminator Genisys. Coming in at my number 3 spot, we got Terminator Salvation. Now, again, just like with Genisys, I feel like I'm higher on this movie than most people are. I really enjoy this movie. I feel like my biggest gripe is really just that it's not rated R, because when we finally get to this movie, we finally get to see the war and battles that we've been leading to between the Resistance and Skynet and everything that's been built up, but we don't really get to feel the weight of it or see the carnage and ramifications of a brutal war like this would be because of its PG-13 rating. When I'm watching it, it doesn't bother me that much. I only kind of started thinking about it after, like, oh, I really wish that was rated R. It should have been rated R. There wasn't a reason for the franchise to divert from that R rating. That definitely bothered me, but other than that, I would say Christian Bale does a great job. He portrays John Connor this is my favorite version of John Connor's portrayal. I think he is that hardened war general character that he is going for. You could tell he's been through some shit, he's seen some shit, and you see that on screen. He is that leader that we've heard so much talked about in these movies. Like, these other portrayals of John don't really show him to his full effect, and I think Christian Bale does a good job at finally giving us what we've been told so much about John. I think the effects hold up really well. I love the different variations of like the Skynet Terminators. It makes them feel more intimidating and like a bigger threat, and it would make sense in this wartime movie for Skynet to start breaking out these new Terminators, evolving to try and win this war. So I like that we get to see a lot of that throughout the movie. Just like I was talking in Genisys, I enjoy the Sam Worthington Terminator twist in this movie. It adds to an emotional ending, not only for the movie, but it adds to an emotional ending for that Sam Worthington character, and then also helps John Connor's character, because we get to see John Connor finally accept help and a life-saving help from a Terminator, and John Connor finally allows him to do this. And then with Sam Worthington's character, we get a nice arc with him finally helping out the humans and making his life valuable, like something that he is proud of that he was able to accomplish. So I think it's set up perfectly and ends off really, really nicely. This was one of those sequels that I kind of wish we stuck with. I kind of wanted to see how this trilogy that they had planned like played out and everything. So it's just kind of sad like seeing these other 2 sequels come out that I didn't like as much. So I was hoping to see a sequel from Terminator Salvation. I think it would have been the better of the jumping off points from some of our sequels after the second one. My number 3 spot, we got Terminator Salvation. Coming in at my number 2 spot. Now, obviously, my 1 and 2, I feel like are just the same exact things you see in every single Terminator franchise ranking, but it's for a reason. These top two are fantastic movies, and it was so difficult to see which one I wanted to put in my number 2 spot compared to my number 1 spot. But I think I came to the conclusion on where to place these just based on which one that I felt like I'd want to revisit and watch again. So coming in at my number 2 spot, we got the original, The Terminator. This is a classic movie for a great reason. The most impressive thing about this is how well it really holds up. It's a unique action movie that has a lot of horror, sci-fi, and slasher elements throughout that really helps it stand on its own. I also love how the movie is set up by giving Kyle and Arnold's characters their motivations revealed to us without any dialogue or exposition, because you see both of those characters come into this Earth world the same exact way, and you're not really sure who's the protagonist, who's the antagonist, and we really don't find that out until the characters in the movie have it revealed to them. So we don't find that out until Sarah kind of figures it out. It provides a unique hook to the movie right away, where you get these characters introduced and you're not sure what their motivations are or why they're even here. Already the movie starts off with a great hook that grasps onto you right away, and then you don't get your plot points revealed until you stick with the movie and find out with our characters. I really enjoyed the setup and payoff for this movie. I think another big thing to mention in this movie is Arnold's amazing acting. He's terrifying and brutal, but I think the thing that sticks out to me most is his subtle and grounded robotic performance, because a movie like this really hinges on his performance, because if it was over the top in any way, it would just take a lot of intensity and emotion out of it. But he nails this performance so well, where he doesn't go so over the top where it just comes off as goofy or cheesy. So I really like that in this movie. Again, I think the practical effects, not only in the action and carnage, hold up really well, but just throughout. At ZakIsCinema, as you guys know, we love and appreciate practical effects. Even some of the dated practical effects, you could just see the love and care that went into making a movie like this, especially with its such small budget. It's really impressive with how well it does hold up. I think this movie provides a unique twist on time travel and dystopian future movies. I love the arc that Sarah goes on. She has a great, powerful arc. She's purposefully set up to be this nobody, boring, normal character, because by the time you get to the end of the movie, she's completely different because of the journey and arcs and experiences she goes on throughout the movie. She's just kind of supposed to be thrown into the situation, but then you see how great of a character and person she is with how she handles a situation like this, takes charge of everything, and then you see where it leaves off at the ending. So it's an awesome arc. It does work very well in this movie. I think it's a great fun movie with constant tension that makes the pacing perfect, because you have Arnold, which is a great villain, and he's a Terminator killing robot with one and only mission. So no matter what our characters are doing, there's always constant tension, because there is that looming threat in the background, and you feel that in the movie. You feel it with its terrific pacing as well. So I absolutely love the original. Got it coming in at number 2, The Terminator. My number 1, no surprise to, I think, anybody, because my number 1 is Terminator 2, Judgment Day. The only thing I can really hold against this movie, honestly, is I'm just, like I've mentioned, I'm not that big of a fan of John Connor's character. I don't think it's the character, I just think it's most of the portrayals I've had issues with. And one of the biggest issues that I have in this franchise is the portrayal of John in Terminator 2. I get that he is a child and not supposed to be this hardened leader we've been hearing about, but just how whiny, bratty, and annoying he is, I find it difficult to get through some of his scenes just because I don't really sympathize with him. I don't have fun watching him on screen all that much. And I find myself with Terminator 2 just like kind of wanting to get back to scenes with like Arnold or Sarah or like anybody else, honestly. So it's the only thing I can hold against it, but at the same time, it's almost a positive because I can look past it so easily because of how well everything else is in this movie. I love how it starts off so similar to the first one, but does it on purpose to change your expectations, but it plays a unique part in the role of the story and the lore of our franchise because it sets itself up like it's doing that similar action sequel thing where it's like, hey, we're just doing the same exact plot again here, people. You're going to sit down and you're going to like it. So they set up your expectations that same exact way, but the twist happens for a reason. It adds more lore to our resistance. It adds more lore to our Skynet villain, and it just provides a unique twist in the movie that happens early on that again provides that good hook because you get comfortable seeing that, seeing these plot points come out, but then as soon as they reverse the roles, it hooks you again and provides a unique angle on a sequel that could have just fallen into that rehash territory, but it doesn't. I honestly think that Arnold works better in the protagonist role. I think Arnold just provides that he provides a screen presence that you like to see a lot of, and I love seeing him in that hero role. So I love that we get like two different versions in these first two movies of Arnold's Terminator character. The action in this movie, it's completely elevated and memorable compared to our first movie. All the scenes hold up well. Nothing seems dated. You get big spectacle, memorable action set pieces where they're using motorcycles, helicopters, jumping off bridges, 16-wheeler gas truck in some of the scenes, and all the Terminator action and violence holds up really well. Like, it's intense with those memorable scenes that you remember after you're done watching the movie, and it's so impressive seeing this 30 years later, seeing how well they hold up compared to other action movies that we get nowadays. It's awesome and it's impressive. Like I touched on, the Terminator villain, the T-1000 villain, is great and intimidating despite some iffy CG, mostly towards the end. I think I mentioned it in my review that some of his bullet holes just look like leftover tin storage containers. But again, you can look past it because he is a great villain. He's even more intimidating than Arnold's Terminator, in my opinion, just because of how more advanced he is with the liquid metal stuff and how much quicker and threatening he is. So you get that help with its pacing. It is a longer movie, but I feel like you don't feel it because of that imposing threat going on in the background constantly to our characters. No matter what they're doing, they got the T-1000 running right at them. And I think the biggest thing for me, honestly, is this movie puts all three of our main characters, Sarah, John, and Arnold, on an amazing arc that has a great emotional payoff. And the beautiful thing about this movie is how it wraps up everything so perfectly. They defeat Skynet and they defeat, what they assume, they defeat any future possibilities of something like this happening. And I can't imagine how difficult that is when writing a time travel sci-fi movie to make sure all your plot points are wrapped up nicely. But they pull it off in this movie. And I think that's why we see diminishing returns with all of our sequels, just because of how well this wraps everything up. And then when you get to the sequels, you're like, well, it's automatically a little bit lower for me just because of how well you wrapped up everything in T2. Like, there's no reason for me to be here anymore. There's no reason for our characters to be here anymore. So I'm more positive on some of the sequels, but still, I think T2 is peak and doesn't get much better after this movie, unfortunately. But Terminator 2, I'm not saying anything new. It is amazing. I do really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite action movies of all time. So coming in at number 1, we got Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Yes, thank you guys so much. We've reached the end. We've reached the end of our Terminator reviews. Let me know down below if you hope that we get another Terminator sequel or movie someday. Let me know down below your ranking of all 6 Terminator movies. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on the franchise as a whole down below. Yes, I really do appreciate anybody watching my videos. I do appreciate you guys clicking on this video and watching. Again, thank you so much. Look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.